this town. That can all change like that.
Hey, you're Rick Dalton. Don't you forget.
I can't say that I regret any of my actions. In many ways, this has been the best time of my life.
Hello, and thanks for joining us for our look at this summer's releases with our critic, Lisa Nesselson. Hello, Lisa.
Louise.
Now, starting with a great movie, Quentin Tarantino's ninth film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, is out in France this August. It premiered in May at the Cannes Film Festival. I love this, especially Brad Pitt's performance. The director pleaded with the press not to give too much away at Cannes. Why?
Well, because it's a fairy tale. The Once Upon a Time in the title tips us off to that. And all anybody needs to know going in is that it takes place in Los Angeles in the summer of 1969, and it stars Leonardo DiCaprio as an actor whose career is on the decline and Brad Pitt as his stunt double. It lovingly recreates on real celluloid film the Los Angeles of Tarantino's youth, which still seemed California laid back at an intense juncture for the nation. Within the span of a few weeks, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin landed on the moon and safely returned. And in upstate New York, the Woodstock Music Festival made history, and the so-called Manson family also entered the history books for the worst possible reason. That was America in late 1969, both coasts and outer space. It was a dazzling time to be 13 years old, in my case, 6 years old for Tarantino. One of the reasons I go to Cannes is to see Tarantino's films before they're ruined by my colleagues giving too much away. 25 years later, I can still kind of feel the pressure against my chest as I almost got crushed to death in the crowd for the world premiere of Pulp Fiction. And I would have hated to miss that due to death by suffocation. Inglourious Bastards was also an event, and as you know, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was really, really an event.
OK, well, let's take a look at the safe bits and hear from actors Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio.
Whenever Quentin Tarantino calls you, whether it be on planet Earth or Mars or Pluto, you pay attention to what he's offering you because he's one of the most unique artistic voices in our industry, and you pretty much say yes.
I thought it was, a great idea, going to be a great combination. And, the longer I do this, the company I keep becomes as important as the project itself.
All right, what's the matter, partner?
It's official, old buddy. Well, has been. Here I am, and who I got living next door to me?
I'm Sharon Tate. I'm in the movies. That's me. Charlie's gonna dig you.
Now, Margot Robbie plays Sharon Tate, and Tarantino seemed pained when a journalist complained that her part wasn't big enough.
Well, understandable. I'm pained just hearing about it again. Robbie is perfect, and the amount of screen time is perfect. Tarantino is doing something delicate, not at all boorish or heavy-handed. His movies, all of them, refer to the building blocks of other movies. Here he makes use of real-life people, including Bruce Lee, but also Roman Polanski and his wife Sharon Tate, a radiantly attractive young actress. Because the role is expertly written and Robbie splendidly cast, the film makes respectful use of Sharon Tate as a vector for what the movies can do. There is no justice in this world, but I am heartened that Polanski has now outlived Manson, the madman behind the savage murder of his then pregnant wife and household guests, and he died in prison not long ago. In a Tarantino film, every line of dialogue, every prop, every article of clothing is thought to be through to the nth degree. All of the performances are superb, but Brad Pitt is breathtakingly good. And by the way, this movie won the Palme d'Or, which goes to the best performance by a dog in any movie at Cannes any year. And that dog is almost as good as Brad Pitt.
He was excellent. He was certainly excellent. OK, also out in France this summer is a film based on a true story and that was nominated for 3 Oscars, including for comedian Melissa McCarthy in her first truly serious role. What can you tell us about Can You Ever Forgive Me?
This is an incredibly satisfying movie. It's the true story of writer Lee Israel, a cranky lesbian who's published several well-regarded biographies, but is out of work and in desperate need of money. She knows her way around words, but not people. She's never met a social nicety she couldn't ignore or trample. She loves her cat, and that's about it. She loves her cat. Completely by accident, and with malice only as an afterthought, she happens to come into possession of a letter written by a famous author. So she takes takes it to an autograph dealer and gets an encouraging payment in return and says, hey, there's a market for this stuff. And the so-called experts are so pretentious. Why not just enrich the market and herself by fabricating letters supposedly written by famous authors to other famous people? Lee is really, really good at imitating the writing styles of the big names collectors covet. Suji has a battery of different typewriters. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, well, let's take a look at Melissa McCarthy as she pulls the wool over a great many supposedly expert eyes in Manhattan.
Yeah, I can definitely get a lot more for this one. I mean, the PS makes it priceless. How does 350 sound?
Now, when we think of forgery, we usually think of checks or currency, don't we?
Yes, but forgery is a fascinating topic. Lots of good movies have needle-binding scenes with fake passports or fake ID badges. Art forgers have been the subject of several terrific documentaries. Whole manuscripts supposedly written by big names, Hitler, for example, have made headlines. But Lee Israel brought a special dose of artistry to what happens to be a federal crime. Here the joke is on the urban sophisticates who fall for Lee's fakes because they're so much fun to read. This is a terrific film with a lot to say about ingenuity, dignity in dire straits, and loneliness. I loved it.
It sounds fun. Well, next, director Arnaud de Plechin comes from the northern city of Roubaix, which is reportedly the poorest area of France. His new film, Oh Mercy, premiered in competition in Cannes in May. I enjoyed this, but it is pretty dreary, isn't it?
Well, I've never been to the real Roubaix, but the movie version of it is definitely dreary. What this film has to offer is its performances. This is an odd exercise. De Plechin saw a 2008 documentary about Roubaix's police headquarters and the cases they handle. The doc includes an investigation into a brutal crime, and De Plechin decided to replicate the documentary's true murder mystery by casting actors as the protagonists. And what actors? Sarah Forestier and Léa Seydoux play a poor lesbian couple whose elderly female neighbor has been murdered. They're the ones who call the police. The patient, calm, dedicated police captain Douad, played by Rajdi Zem, has his own approach to crime in his jurisdiction. Does he know what really happened? Is he taking in the right suspects for questioning? Nothing seems to surprise him, but he's anything but jaded.
Yeah, I absolutely love that character. Let's take a look.
Tiens, regardez là. Vous voyez le carreau là? Il y a le volet qui est défoncé.
Mais pourquoi est-ce qu'ils viennent ici vous les connaissez? C'est toujours les mêmes ou bien vous pourriez les reconnaître?
Moi j'ai un gamin de 6 ans. Alors, franchement, même si je les reconnaissais, je le dirais pas.
Enfin, pas sur le PV, juste de façon informelle. Ça paraîtrait pas dans la procédure. En fait, à partir du moment où il y a votre nom sur aucun papier et où il n'y a pas votre signature, il n'y a aucune raison pour que vous soyez jamais en règle.
Les gens sont pas cons. Ils ont envie de fait de se dire que c'est moi. Ils savent que j'habite ici.
Now, there's a lot of detail in the film thanks to the documentary. Does de Plechin's experiment work?
Well, it's carefully constructed and in its own way kind of suspenseful. Who would kill an old lady with nothing worth stealing? I don't think it's an amazing film that I'd tell my friends to rush out and see, but I do think it's far, far better than what it's been accused of by some people, which is just being an episode of a procedural police TV series. Zem gives a very convincing performance as a man whose family members have all returned to North Africa, but who himself feels deeply connected to Roubaix. I left the theater grateful that there are people who dedicate their lives to painstaking police work because, you know, society needs them.
OK, well, that's Oh Mercy. Next, Francis Ford Coppola will be the guest of honour at the annual Lumière Festival in Lyon in October, where 4,000 people will stay up all night to watch all 3 instalments of the Godfather trilogy. And one of Coppola's most notorious films, Apocalypse Now, is being re-released under the title Apocalypse Now Final Cut. Tell us more.
Well, when Coppola, who shared the Golden Palm in Cannes in 1979 for Apocalypse Now, brought Apocalypse Now Redux back to the festival 22 years later in 2001, this strange ritual started happening. Now, harried film critics are in the habit of pausing just long enough to say, what have you seen that's good? And that year, everyone's answer was, well, Apocalypse Now, actually, which wasn't new at all. It just had some scenes reintegrated that had been left out the first time. In other words, it was a superb film in 1979. It was a superb film in 2001. And the 80-year-old Coppola has tweaked it yet again to give us a superb film now in 2019. The filming was especially shambolic. Star Martin Sheen had a heart attack, a typhoon destroyed the sets, etc. But the story, inspired by Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness and set in Vietnam, was brilliantly told. Special effects weren't the computer-driven marvels they are today. If you see helicopters flying in formation, then every one of those helicopters is really being flown in that spot in the sky. And if villagers hack an ox to death with machetes, well, an animal most definitely was harmed in the making of the film. When the movie came out in France, I happened to be working as a jeune fille au pair for a U.S. embassy family where the father had served in Vietnam. They were livid about the movie. They hated it. Why? Because as the lady of the household put it, well, the U.S. would never send somebody to kill one of their own. Oh, okay. The target, Colonel Kurtz, was played by Marlon Brando, and he was just the cherry atop a wonderful casting cake. The irony is that the cast and crew ended up in a parallel universe of combat conditions in their prolonged struggle to make the movie. Hey, everybody, thank you for your service. And fittingly, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, this is like that. It's about how the 1960s in America came to an end.
Okay, thank you so much, Lisa. We're going to leave you with Apocalypse Now. Remember our website, we're also on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. There's more news coming up on France 24 after this.
This is the end, my only friend, the end.
Are you an assassin? I'm a soldier.